The darkness of history hides grand stories, forgotten by the world yet preserved in the depths of time. Today, we embark on a fascinating journey, beyond the known frontiers, toward legendary civilizations that etched their names in golden letters upon chronicles long lost. We lift the veil of mystery to uncover the Minoan civilization, the mighty empire that once ruled the Mediterranean with imposing palaces and ships laden with untold treasures. Within its labyrinthine corridors, the tales of gods and mortals intertwine in an enigmatic harmony. Beyond the shores of Crete, we encounter the Elamites, masters of the desert, builders of radiant cities beneath the shadow of the Zagros Mountains. Their enigmatic empire flourished in quiet prosperity, leaving behind mysterious traces that continue to captivate modern archaeologists. Yet the peace of these ancient worlds was destined to be shattered by a dreadful force, rising from the darkened seas of the unknown. They are the Sea Peoples, the mysterious invaders, faceless and without a clearly defined name. Those who brought about the collapse of the Bronze Age, destroying empires and triggering political earthquakes of biblical proportions. These enigmatic warriors and their relentless fleets forever altered the course of history, marking the end of one era and the beginning of another, veiled in darkness and uncertainty. Join us on this captivating adventure where myth and reality meet, and the vestiges of the past come alive in epic images and astonishing stories. Forgotten civilizations, lost empires, and fearless warriors await you in a video that will remain forever engraved in your mind and soul. Imagine how the sun ignites the Mediterranean horizon, painting the sky in a symphony of red and gold, while a gentle breeze caresses the foaming waves of the sea. There, in the heart of the Aegean Sea, lies the island of Crete, a jewel of ancient times, which once hosted one of the most fascinating and enigmatic civilizations in the world, the Minoan civilization. Today, I invite you to step with me into the past, to feel the grandeur of temples and palaces meticulously built, to hear the echo of long-forgotten rituals, and to experience the thrill of discoveries that still spark awe in the hearts of archaeologists and history enthusiasts alike. With the eye of your mind, seat yourself on the sail of an old ship, rocked by the rhythm of the sea, drawing near to Crete's golden shores. The image of an island bathed in sunlight, with rugged mountains rising boldly into the sky, is but the prelude to a magnificent chapter in humanity's history. As we disembark, a mysterious roar surrounds us. It is as though the spirits of a splendid past are calling us into an unforgettable adventure where temples and palaces, adorned with vibrant frescoes and sculptures, stand silent witness to past glory. Are we ready to decipher their secrets? The Minoan civilization flourished beginning in the 3rd millennium before Christ, and its period of greatest development lasted until about the middle of the 2nd millennium before Christ. Chronological divisions vary among historians, but many believe that the apex of Minoan power took place during the so-called palatial period, when grand palaces such as those at Knossos, Phaistos, Malia, and Zakros became political and religious centers of incomparable splendor. Ancient sources, few and fragmentary, offer only shadows of a precise chronology, yet archaeological discoveries reveal an incredibly advanced society for those times. Vast, intricately decorated constructions and innovative engineering techniques indicate that the Minoans were masters of masonry and urban planning. The ingenious storage systems for grain, olive oil, and wine within palace spaces reflect a well-organized economic structure. Although we lack the names of specific rulers in the modern sense, Greek legends speak of the famous King Minos, a figure who became synonymous with their entire civilization, even if his actual existence was often intertwined with myth. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine how, in a large square paved with fine stones, people gather to sell fabrics, exotic spices, and finely crafted ceramic vessels embellished with spiral and floral motifs. The air is filled with enticing scents, fresh olive oil, mingling with the fragrance of herbs from the hills and the sea, creating a festive ambience. In the background, drum rhythms and the sound of wind instruments call to dancing and celebration. In this colorful and lively universe, the Minoan civilization gained an enviable position, basing its prosperity on trade, art, and an administrative system that allowed it to thrive for centuries. If we analyze their form of organization, the Minoans were not governed by a single despotic ruler, as one might assume in an ancient culture. Rather, power seems to have been shared among several palatial centers, each with its own leader or ruling class. The palace was not merely a royal residence, but an administrative, economic, and religious complex. Here, food reserves were stored, ceremonies were organized, and state matters were discussed. The clergy played an important role, maintaining a connection with the venerable deities. Minoan society appears to have granted a central role to women, especially in the religious sphere. Frescoes depict priestesses in positions of honor, dancing or officiating rituals before crowds. Religious ceremonies often took place in interior courtyards consecrated to the worship of a mother goddess or other deities associated with fertility and nature. Moreover, men and women seem to have enjoyed a certain degree of equality, a rare phenomenon in the early epochs of humanity. Although we do not possess written documents we can fully read, Minoan writing, known as Linear A, remains largely undeciphered. Frescoes, sculptures, and architectural ruins tell us a story of a profoundly religious, prosperous, and balanced society. In addition to their internal organization, we must not forget the significant influence the Minoans exerted in the Aegean Sea and beyond. Maritime trade opened routes toward Egypt, Asia Minor, and even Cyprus, bringing precious metals, ivory, and spices to the island. Conversely, they exported fine olive oil, wine, their unmistakable ceramics, and other artisanal goods. Through this continuous exchange, Crete became an important commercial and cultural hub of the Mediterranean Sea, making the Minoan civilization a significant power in a rapidly evolving world. We cannot speak of the Minoans without invoking the ancient myths and legends that have survived to this day, often passed on by neighboring civilizations that followed them, such as the Mycenaean or the Classical Greek. One of the best-known stories is that of King Minos, son of Zeus and Europa, who ruled from the palace of Knossos. The famous architect Daedalus is said to have built here a vast labyrinth meant to imprison the beast called the Minotaur, a creature half man and half bull. The myth states that this Minotaur fed on young sacrificial victims from Athens, and the hero Theseus volunteered to confront it, ultimately defeating it with the aid of Ariadne's thread, King Minos's daughter. Although modern historians do not believe that a real monster roamed the corridors of Knossos, The complexity of the palace, with its numerous rooms, storage areas, and labyrinthine corridors, may have inspired these mysterious and tense stories. Nevertheless, mythology could also reflect real aspects of Minoan culture, such as ritual sacrifices, though not necessarily human, or bull dances, directly depicted in frescoes that show young men and women leaping over a bull's back as part of religious or initiation ceremonies. In this way, the world of myth and that of historical reality merge, making the Minoan civilization a land of endless fascination. When you step through the ruins of Minoan palaces, your eyes are drawn to the vibrant colors still visible on fragments of fresco despite the passing of so many centuries. Painted walls depict leaping dolphins, lilies, fish, dance scenes, and religious processions. Minoan art is characterized by a naturalistic, fluid, and harmonious style, expressing a profound bond with the surrounding nature and marine life. The Palace of Knossos, for example, was composed of numerous levels and interior courtyards, connected by stairways and corridors that seemed to stretch on indefinitely. Certain chambers were reserved for priests and sacred ceremonies, while others were used as storage for valuable goods or food reserves. What still impresses us today is the advanced drainage and ventilation system ingeniously designed to ensure residents' comfort. Ceilings and columns painted in red or black with distinctive shapes are signs of a refined architecture. Rather than employing the brute force of massive constructions, the Minoans preferred graceful structures, arranged so as to create an almost theatrical effect for visitors. Moreover, the Minoan civilization left us examples of refinement in ceramics as well. Vases, bowls, and cups decorated with spiral patterns, floral motifs, or representations of marine fauna were used both in daily life and in rituals. This unique style, known today as the marine or palatial style, stands out through attention to detail and the expressive quality of the figures. And when you behold a piece of Minoan pottery, you feel as though it is a fragment of that era's spirit, an invitation to see the world through the eyes of a civilization in love with nature and life's beauty. The central and strategic location of the island of Crete allowed the Minoans to become skilled merchants and navigators, mastering vital maritime routes in the Mediterranean world. Archaeological evidence suggests that Minoan vessels reached as far as Egypt, Phoenicia, or the coast of Syria, bringing back crucial resources such as precious metals, ivory, and spices. This vast network of exchanges contributed to Crete's technological and cultural development, each import introducing new influences and ideas. Trade did not merely involve material goods, but also religious symbols, artistic models, and even administrative practices. The Minoans adopted and adapted all that was valuable to their own society, cultivating thus an open spirit toward innovation. At the same time, they exported fine olive oil, aromatic wines, and high-quality textiles, while their renowned craft objects, ceramics, jewelry, and statuettes, were greatly sought after on the international market of the era. Consequently, Crete became a true convergence point of cultures, a place where East and West met under a radiant sun, with the sea as the link connecting seemingly distant peoples. Let us imagine walking through the streets of a Minoan city in its days of glory. Houses built of stone and mud brick line paved alleys. Some dwellings, more luxurious, rise 2 or 3 levels high, featuring wooden balconies and painted walls. In the central marketplace, merchants' calls and offers fill the air. The scents of olive oil, aromatic herbs, and steaming bread awaken your hunger. The faces of the people reveal the joy of an abundant life, the result of flourishing harvests and thriving commerce. Women, wearing airy dresses tastefully tailored and embroidered with floral motifs, handle household tasks but also engage in crafts. Men, clad in simple tunics, work at the docks, in metalworking shops, or in construction. Children run through the streets, playing with fabric balls or small carved animals under the watchful eyes of their mothers. The metallic clang of hammers from the workshops, blended with the murmur of the waves, forms a unique soundscape that speaks of a hard-working and vibrant society. Religious rituals and public celebrations bring the community together in palace courtyards or open-air sanctuaries on mountain peaks. There, priests and priestesses perform sacred dances, and animal sacrifices, particularly of bulls, are deemed essential offerings to protective gods. In those moments, music and dance unite the entire island in a single heartbeat. Pulsing with faith and hope, each soul convinced that the gods and the forces of nature favor the Minoans, ensuring their prosperity. But what exactly brought an end to this remarkable civilization? Here, history intertwines with theory and mystery. Some specialists believe that the eruption of the volcano on the island of Thera, known today as Santorini, was the trigger for the decline. Considered by many to be among the most powerful eruptions in human history, it may have generated an enormous tsunami and long-term climatic changes. These cataclysms would have drastically affected the Minoan trade network, destroying ports and crops and weakening the island's economic power. A second theory suggests an invasion by Mycenaeans from the Greek mainland. There may have been military conflicts, and the already weakened Minoan naval power, compromised by natural disasters, could not resist these attacks. Thus, the Mycenaeans would have seized the island and imposed their own cultural and administrative models, transforming Crete into a strategic outpost. Nor are we lacking hypotheses about an internal decline generated by political and social problems. It is possible that the palace structure and the ruling class dissolved amid internal conflicts, losing their authority and capacity to efficiently manage resources. The abrupt decline of commerce and the collapse of palaces, some likely destroyed by fires and earthquakes, would have accelerated the disintegration of the Minoan system. Ultimately, this grand power vanished, leaving behind only majestic ruins and the legends that kept it alive in collective memory. Even though Minoan glory has faded, its legacy survived through the cultural and technological influences it passed on to its successors. The Mycenaean civilization, which followed, adopted some of their administrative and architectural elements, while the legends of King Minos and the Minotaur's labyrinth became foundational for Greek mythology. In essence, the Minoans represented a bridge between East and West, synthesizing and spreading knowledge that would form the basis of later developments in the Aegean world. Modern research, beginning in the 19th century and continuing throughout the 20th century and beyond, has unearthed palaces, artifacts, and writings. Archaeologists, historians, and linguists have put forth tremendous efforts to decipher the mysteries of Minoan writing and to reconstruct the image of this enigmatic society. Although we have yet to unravel all their secrets, each new discovery ignites even greater curiosity worldwide. Thus, the civilization that once dominated the Aegean Sea for thousands of years continues to fascinate and inspire. Today, the ruins of Minoan palaces, with their red columns and still vibrant frescoes, await the footsteps of curious visitors. When you stand before a massive column in the Palace of Knossos and gaze upon the central courtyard, where once thousands of souls gathered on festival days, you feel as though you are witnessing a temporal enigma. You would like to reach out, to touch the warm stone, and to ask King Minos himself about the secret of their prosperity, about their gods and rituals, about the wisdom that allowed them to become a major power in the ancient world. You feel a shiver when recalling the legend of the labyrinth. Perhaps it was more than a mere prison for the Minotaur. Perhaps it was a metaphor for the complexity of Minoan society, a symbol of humanity's adventure in seeking knowledge and spirituality. Every chamber and corridor in the palace opened up for the Minoans a new world, a new reason to invoke the god or to prepare for the next sea voyage. Their history, marked by splendor and abruptly cut short by uncontrollable forces, still reminds us how fragile the glory of a civilization can be. At the same time, it inspires us to search for and rediscover the power of innovation, social harmony, and respect for nature, the values that allowed the Minoans to flourish for centuries. At the threshold of sunset, the sun descends over the Cretan mountains, bathing the landscape in a reddish glow. We look toward the horizon, where the sea hides its secrets beneath mysterious waves. There, at the boundary between reality and legend, lies the story of the Minoan civilization, woven in a sacred dance with the gods and with nature. Their tale, once known to the entire ancient world, today seems an ancient echo, yet still a potent one. Perhaps we will never know all the details of their lives. Perhaps over time, fragments of the past will continue to surface, revealing glimpses of truth and amplifying our fascination. What we know for certain is that the Minoans built an empire of art, commerce, and spirituality, an empire that turned Crete into a beacon of light for the civilizations that followed. And this flame, this fire of creativity and sacrifice still burns, fueling the curiosity of present and future generations. I invite you not to let this journey end here. Every step through archaeological sites, every book opened on the history of the Aegean Sea, every exhibit admired in museums, and every spark of imagination urging us to dream of the labyrinth and the Minotaur reminds us that the past is not far away. It dwells in us, in each gesture of exploration, and in every desire to comprehend what it meant to be part of an extraordinary people who left behind an unparalleled legacy and a perpetual invitation to discover. Thus, closing this chapter, we lift our gaze to the night sky, strewn with stars, just as the Minoans did so many millennia ago. Under the gentle light of the moon, Crete remains a sacred realm, washed by waters and shaped by wind, keeping watch over its secrets. If we know how to listen and to look with an open heart, the echoes of the Minoan civilization will guide our steps through time, once again carrying us into the vibration of a grandiose world, vanished yet forever alive in humanity's memory. At the dawn of all things, when the sun's rays first caressed the earth between mighty rivers and towering mountains, legends speak of a steadfast and visionary people who carved out their destiny in a land of dramatic contrasts. In this world where desert sands merged with fertile valleys and pristine springs, a civilization called the Elamites was born. Today, we embark together on an epic journey, seeking the glory and mysteries of this ancient people, to revive the moments of their pinnacle, and to deeply comprehend how an empire once so powerful found itself lost in the twilight of history. Ready your spirit for a voyage through the immensity of ages past, where echoes of grand palaces, awe-inspiring temples and bustling markets still resound beneath layers of earth and silence. As we step into this ancient landscape, we can almost sense the heartbeat of the ancestors who, many thousands of years ago, rose at dawn to begin a new day beneath the scorching sun and under the watchful gaze of their mysterious gods. The wind, once the bearer of triumphant songs and battle orders, still carries the stirrings of the past across these lands. Now is the moment to let ourselves be enveloped by the solemn atmosphere and to open our minds to the magnificent heritage of the Elamites. Everything begins with a tale of their origins, an ancient legend passed down from generation to generation, about how a people tempered by nature's challenges managed to build a destiny amid adversities and hopes. It is believed that the earliest forms of social and political organization among the Elamites took shape around the 3rd millennium before our era, in a region situated east of the famous Sumerian cities and north of the sandy plains that lead toward the mountains. Drawn by the fertile soil near certain valleys and the wealth of natural resources, these people began to unite into stable communities. At first, they were just small tribal settlements, led by councils of elders or influential chieftains. But over time, thanks to trade exchanges and artisanal development, the tiny villages flourished and turned into the first city-states. In time, the Elamites came to be mentioned in the writings of their Mesopotamian neighbors, who described them either as trade partners or as rivals in battles for hegemony. It is said that during their period of greatest expansion, the Elamites ruled vast territories, from the fertile southern plains to the steep hills at the foot of the mountains. Modern historians, based on artifacts and clay tablets discovered in archaeological sites, consider that the Elamites developed a complex system of governance with powerful kings and successive dynasties, each one aspiring to leave behind unique monuments and creations. Elamite society was structured on a model that combined divine kingship with a council formed of nobles and sages. The king was viewed as the representative of the gods on earth, and coronation rituals took place in impressive temples adorned with bas-reliefs and rich offerings. Nobles held administrative, military, or diplomatic responsibilities, while priests enjoyed considerable influence, guiding the community's spiritual life and holding a crucial role in interpreting celestial signs. Although most inhabitants were farmers, craftsmen, or merchants, society provided ways to achieve recognition and to reward talents, emphasizing loyalty, courage, and wisdom. The Elamites left behind an impressive legacy in the form of artworks, monumental constructions, and technological achievements. One of their most remarkable accomplishments was the development of an architectural style that blended local elements with influences arising from their commercial contacts with other civilizations. Building walls were erected from sun-baked bricks, yet they gained remarkable durability thanks to advanced construction techniques and local materials. Royal palaces, raised on high platforms, stood out as landmarks of power and order, while temples were distinguished by decorated columns and interior courtyards where sacred ceremonies were held. Elamite artists specialized in metalworking, especially of copper and gold, creating fine jewelry and richly decorated daggers. On clay vessels, we find geometric motifs and stylized representations of sacred animals, notably imposing bulls and lions. Mural frescoes and relief sculptures depict hunting scenes, religious processions, or moments of homage to kings and gods, revealing a world in which myth and reality harmoniously fused. Many historians believe that Elamite art influenced, to some extent, the aesthetics of neighboring civilizations through the refinement of its motifs and its elaborate working techniques. Culturally, the Elamites were noted for developing their own writing system, adapted to the administrative and religious needs of their society. Although not as widespread or as well known as the Mesopotamian systems of writing, Elamite script remains one of the oldest written codes in human history. Clay tablets discovered in the ruins of Elamite cities confirm the existence of a well-organized bureaucracy, which recorded grain stocks, taxes, diplomatic agreements, and complex commercial relations. This need to communicate and document information propelled the cultural and administrative advancement of the civilization, having a major impact on the development of education and the social status of scribes. Every ancient civilization has its own pantheon of gods and protective spirits, and the Elamites were no exception. Though Mesopotamian influences left their mark on their religion, the Elamites preserved a powerful local thread. Legends speak of gods of fertility, water, and war, each one worshipped in temples where torchlight danced across faces carved in stone. It is said that on festival nights, priests invoked the power of these deities in a ritual of sacred songs and dances intended to ensure bountiful harvests and the kingdom's protection. The most famous legend tells of a founding hero, the son of a mountain goddess, who descended among men to teach them the art of cultivating the earth and metalworking. This hero, named Elam Shuhur in certain inscriptions, is said to have unified the scattered tribes, laying the foundations of the first capital. Legend holds that at his death, the mountains trembled in sorrow and the rivers wept with raging waters, a sign of the profound bond between the forces of nature and the destiny of the Elamites. The civilization's mythology also includes countless tales of demons and spirits said to haunt the crossroads between worlds. In popular belief, these demons could only be driven away by special rituals that involved the entire community and the most powerful priests. In rural areas, when crops were threatened by drought or locust invasions, peasants would bring offerings to appease these entities. Such traditions, rich in symbolism, contributed to the cultural cohesion and sense of identity that animated the Elamites over the centuries. During their peak, the Elamites thrived largely due to their strategic geographic position, which allowed them to control vital trade routes between the Middle East, India, and the mineral-rich mountainous zones. Through their caravans loaded with metals, precious stones, and artisanal goods, they established commercial links with various kingdoms and city-states, becoming bridges between the cultures of the time. Elamite cities, built on the banks of rivers and at the foot of mountains, teemed with life. Markets bustled with merchants advertising their wares. Artisans polished semi-precious stones. Peasants brought fresh fruits and vegetables, and scribes dutifully recorded taxes and transactions. Their irrigation system, based on ingenious canals and wooden dams, demonstrated a high level of knowledge and social organization. Alongside agriculture, crafts such as bronzeworking, pottery, weaving, and ivory carving brought prosperity and well-being, ensuring a dynamic domestic market and a profitable external trade. Militarily, the Elamites earned a reputation as bold, disciplined warriors using war chariots and effective bows. Considering their proximity to significant rival forces, such as various Mesopotamian kingdoms, military power was essential for maintaining independence and protecting their accumulated wealth. Society at the height of Elamite power was relatively diverse and offered certain avenues of social mobility to those skilled in trades or those with leadership abilities. Rural communities thrived under the protection of kings and nobles who invested in public projects such as paved roads or drainage systems in urban areas. The education of scribes and the initiation of priests ensured the continuity of spiritual values and the functioning of institutions. As a result, this balance between religion, governance, and commerce sustained the Elamite flame for centuries, even in the face of historical vicissitudes. Yet, like all great powers of the ancient world, the Elamites were not spared difficulties. Despite attempts at stabilization, the region's geopolitical situation was extremely volatile. With the rise of new rival states in Mesopotamia and the emergence of warlike tribes in the mountainous areas, military pressure on Elamite territories increased significantly. Some sources speak of aggressive campaigns waged against the Elamites, resulting in the destruction of certain cities and the plundering of temples, which undermined the population's morale and weakened royal authority. On the other hand, climate shifts and fluctuations in watercourses appear to have severely affected agriculture. Prolonged droughts likely led to poor harvests, famine, and consequently, social tensions. In some periods, it is said that revolts by exasperated peasants shook the established order, while struggles for succession to the throne became another destabilizing factor. Moreover, the Elamites' greatness always drew envy and a desire for conquest from other peoples, who eventually succeeded in defeating this once proud kingdom. There is also a more mythical view of the Elamites' disappearance. According to certain legends, the gods punished the civilization for the pride of its rulers. They speak of a devastating earthquake, sent as a warning, followed by catastrophic floods that supposedly swept some cities off the face of the earth. Thus, nature is attributed a decisive role in the destruction of Elamite cities, while survivors, horrified and marginalized, are said to have scattered to other lands, blending with neighboring peoples. In reality, the end of the Elamites was most likely the result of a combination of internal factors, power struggles, economic stagnation, social tensions, and external factors, armed invasions, successive conquests, and possibly climate changes that turned the environment more hostile. Beyond the mystery shrouding the last chapters of their history, one thing is certain. Gradually, Elamite civilization was engulfed by new empires, and its traces remained hidden beneath the dust of history for a very long time. For those passionate about the secrets of the ancient world, the ruins of Elamite cities represent a true window into the past. Although many vestiges are still buried or in precarious condition, archaeological excavations have unearthed paved streets, the foundations of administrative buildings and majestic temples, as well as interior courtyards where priests and royal officials once gathered. The objects discovered, iron tools, decorated pottery, inscriptions, seals, and even textile remains, allow us to imagine the daily scene of a sophisticated and energetic people who united spiritual values with material prosperity. Beyond large structures, excavations have also revealed intimate aspects, such as household organization, rudimentary furniture, drainage systems, and spaces dedicated to food processing. For instance, Mortar and pestle pieces have been found, used to grind cereals and spices brought from distant lands. These details suggest a high standard of living for that era and a diverse diet accessible not only to the elite, but also to ordinary residents. Every fragment of historical evidence brings to life a new facet of this civilization, and researchers still strive to decode inscriptions that have not been fully deciphered. Moreover, archaeologists believe that beneath layers of debris lie countless objects and structures capable of rewriting entire segments of Elamite chronology. Thus, their spirit has not entirely disappeared. Even though the empire collapsed, the memory of these remarkable people lives on through the vestiges they left behind. Although the Elamite civilization was for a long time less known to the general public than the Egyptian or Mesopotamian civilizations, its importance for the region's history and for humanity's development cannot be underestimated. They established commercial, cultural, and political bridges among various parts of the ancient world, contributing to the formation of an international trade network unparalleled in those times. The mutual influences between the Elamites and their neighbors can be seen in how art, religion, and technology advanced and evolved through interaction and exchange. Particularly noteworthy is their tradition in writing and resource administration, which had a remarkable impact on later governance methods throughout the region. Mesopotamian chronicles frequently mention the Elamites' role in maintaining regional balance of power and in trading precious stones, rare wood, and metals. After their collapse, the remnants of this people, either in the form of dissident clans or communities assimilated by new powers, continued their existence, perpetuating certain ancestral customs and traditions. For modern historiography, studying the Elamites has opened new horizons regarding how ancient cultures interacted with one another, demonstrating that the exchange of ideas and goods was by no means confined to the space of a single civilization. Moreover, the variety of Elamite artifacts and the complexity of their writing offer researchers valuable clues about the evolution of language, religion, and art in this part of the world. Hence, far from being merely a vanished civilization, the Elamites are an essential key for understanding the puzzle of the great ancient cultures. Today, thousands of years after the last Elamite kings lost their crowns and faded away, we still feel the ancient call of these places. In times past, bold travelers and passionate researchers likewise ventured among the ruins, attempting to unravel the mysteries of a forgotten people. Before them stood collapsed columns, walls eroded by wind and sun, shattered statues, and fragmented pottery that wordlessly recounted the story of a remarkable destiny. Each piece of pottery or inscribed stone has its own narrative, and together these shards of the past reconstruct the mosaic of a civilization that left behind both a magnificent legacy and an ephemeral breath. Perhaps our attraction to the Elamites arises precisely because we, modern humans, can find ourselves in their struggles and dreams. We might glimpse between the cracks of ancient temples the universal need to leave a legacy, to make our presence felt in the flow of time. Or maybe, like them, we too face forces that test our resilience, be they natural disasters, social conflicts, or global transformations. Thus, the story of the Elamites is not just about a long-ago epoch, but about the human condition itself, about the cycles of flourishing and decline that define the course of civilizations. We have therefore arrived at the end of this journey through time, carried by the wind that once bore the echoes of royal fanfares and the voices of Elamite priests. Behind us, the palaces, temples, and lively markets have slipped beneath layers of earth and oblivion, yet their beauty and spiritual power still inspire us. The Elamites, with their mysteries, dreams, and battles, have shown us that sometimes a civilization can be like an intense fire, burning brightly for some centuries before fading, leaving behind only the gentle warmth of memory. Even so, their flame has not truly gone out. With every archaeological discovery, every study of the surviving texts, and every question posed by curious minds, the Elamites return to life. They rise from beneath the ruins and look upon us, reminding us that the past is never truly dead, that the pulse of history continues to beat through knowledge and understanding. Therefore, the ultimate message of this story is not to let silence definitively cloak the voices of a civilization that dared to hope, to create, and to fight for its own place under the sun. Perhaps one day each of us will answer the call to adventure, setting forth on archaeological expeditions, visiting the world's museums, or leafing through forgotten manuscripts to seek out those fragments of history that reveal the true grandeur of the Elamites. In the faint glow of imaginary torches, we will stand face to face with the noble shadows of a vanished people and feel in the profound silence of the past how their voices still speak of a grand dream. Just as the storm cannot entirely erase footprints in the sand, so too can time never fully erase the echo of an unyielding destiny. The story of the Elamites remains alive, like a torch shining across the ages, inviting us to rediscover their secrets and be inspired by their strength. And so this ode, dedicated to an empire that, although lost in the shadows of history, still breathes through the words that remain, through the ruins that pierce the silence, and through our desire to understand and connect with the past, comes to a close. In this moment of farewell, let us remember that every great story we uncover enriches our soul and opens new perspectives on the world, on time, and above all, on humanity's power to create and leave traces that never truly vanish. In the end, that is the most precious gift of the Elamite civilization, the very example that, as long as there are seekers of truth, the memory of a vanished world will be reborn again and again, like an undying flame in the midst of eternity. Imagine a dark sea lashed by lightning on a stormy night, its waves crashing against rocky shores as foreign ships, laden with unknown warriors, drift ominously toward lands still slumbering. A distant rumble, perhaps the echo of a war horn or the thud of drums resonating from those decks, foretells a critical turning point. Amid these dramatic images, a haunting score, an unsettling blend of grave strings and muffled whispers, leads us into the heart of a millennial enigma, the story of the enigmatic sea people, invaders who, much like an unleashed tempest, threw the ancient world's civilizations into turmoil, leaving behind only smoldering ruins and silent inscriptions. Welcome to a documentary where we lift the dense veil of history and cautiously slip into the Bronze Age, the era in which the political, cultural, and economic balance of great empires was shaken. The mighty kingdoms of Egypt, Anatolia, the Levant, or the islands of the Aegean Sea were forced to confront a threat that seemed to emerge from the undefined abyss of the horizon. Were the sea people migrants seeking new homes, warriors driven by hunger and ambition, or perhaps a coalition of tribes united only by desperation and a thirst for conquest? Throughout this time, the roar of the storm resounds in the background, and the darkened sky reflects the tension of that historical moment. Ancient records, from the bas-reliefs of Egyptian temples to the clay tablets of the Hittites, unfold a partial story, sprinkled with questions and contradictions. Alarmed by their power, Egypt's great pharaohs assembled impressive armies, and frontier fortresses were reinforced, only to discover the menace could still arise from unexpected directions. Prepare to step into this realm of the unknown, where the crashing waves and the bustle of foreign troops create an atmosphere of both fear and fascination. Through this cinematic documentary, we will explore not only disasters and wartime victories, but also the essential questions. Who were these mysterious invaders really? Where did they come from? And why have they remained for so many centuries, shrouded in an undeciphered aura? Stay with us on this captivating journey as we strive together to unravel the mystery of the Sea People, delving into the essence of the moment when entire civilizations were tested and history itself was rewritten under the blow of unseen enemies. We find ourselves in the late Bronze Age, roughly between the 13th and 12th centuries before Christ. Around the shores of the Mediterranean, great powers vied for supremacy while maintaining a fragile equilibrium of alliances and trade routes. Egypt had already attained immense prestige since the time of Ramses II, while Mycenaean civilization flourished on the Greek islands and coasts. Hatti, the Hittite Empire, spread across Anatolia, controlling strategic points for the trade of precious metals and grains. Major city-states in Canaan and the Levant thrived on commercial relationships, providing exotic products and refined crafts. Yet on the horizon, a dramatic change begins to manifest. Earthquakes, climate shifts, and possible food crises were already factors weakening political stability. Reports spoke of famine in certain regions and of rising social unrest. In this vulnerable setting, bands of warriors, some Egyptian chronicles generally refer to them as the Northern Peoples, launch a series of concerted attacks on coastal cities. Many of these groups came from areas still not definitively identified. Some theories suggest they might have formed a federation of tribes displaced by natural disasters or pressed by other migrating peoples. Of particular note, we find references to Sherdan, Shekelesh, Denyen, Peliset, and Weshesh, among other groups, in Ramses III's inscriptions at Medinet Habu. Egyptians depicted battle scenes in which such warriors, armed with curved swords and spears, wearing horned or feathered helmets, attacked by sea and by land. Clearly, before heading to the land of the Nile, these tribes had already ravaged various urban centers. In Mycenaean cities, one observes a sudden collapse of palace structures and the regal system. In Anatolia, the Hittite Empire appears to have disintegrated under the onslaught of these incursions, compounded by internal problems. Against this backdrop, the impact on society was immense. Priests and local rulers sought divine signs to explain the catastrophe. Sacrifices and protective rituals were performed. Temples became refuges, and fearful populations abandoned their settlements. The greatness of civilizations boasting centuries of history was shaken by an adversary as fearsome as it was invisible to historical sources. Thus began, slowly, the weaving of myths about their mysterious origins and the hidden motives behind these devastating raids. When historians and archaeologists seek today to understand the origin and composition of the Sea People, they encounter a deluge of ancient accounts, legends, and later reinterpretations that do not always match. In Egyptian chronicles, the attacks are described with exceptional drama, as though a supernatural force descended upon the civilized world. The bas-reliefs at Medinet Habu, temples dedicated to Ramses III, depict truly apocalyptic battle scenes, ships filled with archers and infantry plunging into the waters of the Nile, while Egyptian defenders counter with torrents of arrows. The pharaoh is represented as the divinely chosen guardian, destined to hold back this barbarian tide arriving from the sea. Beyond Egyptian sources, various local myths attempted to explain the emergence of these tribes. Some say the culprits were sea gods who brought them forth from the depths to punish the arrogance of wealthy Near Eastern kingdoms. Others speak of exiled heroes, fighters who, like Odysseus and his companions, roamed the world in search of a new home. Certain specialists have drawn parallels between the Sea People and accounts of wandering Trojans, of Lycians, or even of hypothetical warriors from northern islands far beyond the Aegean Sea. In addition to legends, various metaphorical interpretations took shape. The Sea People were likened to storm demons, a sign that the age of great empires had ended and that a new era of uncertainty was dawning. Rituals tied to the fear of seaborne invasions included the purification of waters and the construction of altars on the shore, where priests offered sacrifices to calm the fury of the waves. In certain parts of the Levant, there remain to this day fishermen's tales of ancient ships haunting the coasts, an archaic echo of the traumas endured by past generations. Legendary creatures associated with these events also appear: sea serpents, witch sirens, or fish-faced deities, all attempting symbolically to explain the unknown threat. For some cultures, the Sea People were such a painful blow that it left a mark in the collective subconscious in the form of fables and warnings for future generations. Beware the unknown foe who may come from beyond the horizon. Thus, mythology perfectly conformed to historical trauma, intensifying the aura of mystery surrounding the identity of these invaders. Although the term Sea People conjures images of violence and disorder, there is another side to this phenomenon. Confronted by an unknown adversary, the civilizations affected were compelled to re-evaluate their social, military, and economic structures. Paradoxically, the invasions prompted adaptations and innovations. In an ancient world where maritime trade was already crucial, defending ports and shipping routes became paramount. Coastal states began to build stronger fortifications, sturdier walls, and to organize war fleets that were faster and better coordinated, thereby enhancing knowledge of naval engineering and military tactics. Moreover, the crisis forced afflicted societies to rethink governance. For instance, the elite of Mycenaean palaces experienced a drastic decline, making way for more decentralized forms of organization. Over time, this contributed to the emergence of small kingdoms and city-states that would form the foundation of classical Greek civilization. In Egypt, resistance to the Sea People was transformed into a propagandistic success that reinforced the pharaoh's legitimacy. Ramses III, in particular, cultivated an image of himself as the sacred defender of the land of the Nile, which bolstered the state religion and the devotion of the masses. Similarly, crafts underwent significant transformations. Under the pressure of conflict, the need for more resilient weaponry and metal forging techniques intensified. Iron was becoming the new star material, gradually replacing bronze. Additionally, certain cultural exchanges were inevitable. The Sea People were not solely aggressors, but also carriers of traditions and objects specific to the areas from which they came. There is evidence that inhabitants of devastated regions adopted elements of clothing, ornaments, or even certain artistic motifs in sculptures and ceramics. Culturally, collective fear fueled artistic depictions of disasters and heroes. Frescoes and mural paintings began to feature scenes of maritime battles, while oral poetry took up themes of exodus, perilous navigation, and confrontation with unknown enemies. Thus, though the invasions brought about the fall of some great civilizations, they also contributed to the rise of others, serving as a catalyst for profound transformations. Rather than constituting merely a grim chapter, the incursions from the sea represented a bridge to new horizons, both culturally and politically, throughout the Mediterranean region. After centuries of research, specialists still fervently debate what happened to the Sea People and how these tribes managed to so swiftly destabilize power structures that had existed for hundreds of years. What is certain is that following the wave of invasions at the end of the Bronze Age, the Eastern Mediterranean world entered a transitional period that some historians call the collapse of the Bronze Age. Some researchers argue that the Sea People comprised multiple uprooted groups from southeastern Europe and Anatolia, migrating due to climate changes, famine, and internal conflicts. They may have formed a federation of convenience, sharing the common goal of finding new lands. According to this view, their persistence in naval attacks derived from desperation and the desire to survive. After pillaging and destroying numerous coastal cities, they absorbed local cultures, leading to a process of assimilation. Some are believed to have settled in Canaan, where, for example, the Philistines mentioned in biblical sources may trace their roots to the Sea People. Others in Cyprus or the land of Hatti. Simultaneously, earthquakes and natural disasters played a major role in weakening defensive structures and political cohesion. In an already fragile context, the final blow came from the Sea People's coordinated attacks, which ravaged populations already exhausted by famine and epidemics. Chronicles mentioning massive fires and plundered storehouses confirm that hunger was a formidable ally of the invaders. A starving city is much easier to subjugate. In the ensuing periods, many cultural elements can be diffusely traced to the civilizations that emerged from the ruins of the Old World. For instance, archaeologists have found evidence of a fusion of Mycenaean ceramic styles with local Levantine elements, suggesting that it was not merely destruction, but also new cultural syntheses. The evolving political and religious forms merged aspects of local traditions with practices originating from the migrating peoples, forging bridges to the Iron Ages yet to come. Regarding the lasting identity of the Sea People, theories diverge. Some claim they dispersed rapidly and disappeared as a single entity once the Great Raids ended. Others believe that nations such as the Philistines, mentioned in biblical texts, represent a direct legacy of some of these maritime tribes. Another hypothesis is that some members were integrated among Phoenician and Syrian populations, becoming merchants or mercenaries, while still preserving their reputation as experienced warriors. Hence, the question remains whether the Sea People were merely the spearhead of a broader systemic crisis, or if their shared identity, born of a momentary alliance, endured in another form, eventually turning into an essential piece of the historical puzzle around the Mediterranean. It is certain that the shock caused by these invaders redefined the known world, leaving deep marks in chronicles, artifacts, and not least in the collective memory of subsequent generations. In the silence that settles after battle, only smoke rises slowly from the ruins. What was once a prosperous port has become a stretch of rubble where the echo of bare footsteps recalls the recent terror. Although the story of the Sea People begins with a dreadful assault on the known world, their end remains an enigmatic chapter, engulfed in the same twilight of history from which they emerged. They left behind fragments of narratives, bas-reliefs, and legends that continue to stir our imagination. It is fascinating to note how these tribes signaled a decisive moment, a threshold between epochs. Where Mycenaean palaces fell, classical Greek civilization gradually took shape. Where Egypt managed to defend its borders, the myth of pharaohs as divine representatives was further cemented. On the coasts of the Levant and in Anatolia, new cultural mixes created bridges to the Phoenician realm and the Neo-Hittite kingdoms, thus foreshadowing an ethnic and commercial mosaic that would influence later civilizations. The legacy of the Sea People is not limited to archaeological sites and poetic narratives. It lives on in the modern fascination for mystery. Books, films, conspiracy theories, and video games obsessively revisit the question, who were they really? Were they fishermen brought to their knees by fate, skilled navigators, fugitive mercenaries, or a multi-ethnic coalition bent on finding a new destiny, no matter how bloody the path? What does their story teach us about ourselves? Perhaps that, like our ancestors, we too are exposed to unimaginable forces, sudden changes in climate, power, or global balance. The fear of the invisible, the need for protection, and the hope for a better future recur cyclically in every society. The Sea People remain a symbol of chaos, unleashed by multiple factors, both natural and human, which can lead to dramatic reconfigurations. We thus end this journey with an invitation to reflection. Let us not forget how fragile human equilibrium can be in the face of the unknown. And when we look toward the marine horizon, let us remember that, behind the waves, a force can arise at any moment to challenge our limits. Remain open to the idea that part of this mystery still awaits our unraveling, for the Sea People have shown us that no matter how we strive to comprehend the past, there always remain enigmas that defy logic and inspire us to explore further. On this uplifting note, we thank you for accompanying us through the discovery of one of the most unsettling and least understood pages of ancient history. May the desire to investigate, to ask questions, and to seek answers continue to guide you. For sometimes the mystery itself is the force that propels us forward, just as the sea's waves endlessly reach the shore, bearing the echo of forgotten legends.